Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. I'm Nick Park and I'm doing a series of messages on Jesus in the Old Testament. We're looking at every single book of the Old Testament and we're seeing how Jesus is clearly foretold there. Indeed, he is the chief theme of the Old Testament, as he is the chief theme of the New Testament and therefore the entire scriptural revelation. And we're in the book of Jeremiah. And in Jeremiah chapter 31, we find a prophecy about a new covenant. Now, a covenant is not just a promise. A covenant is not just a contract. A covenant had a specific meaning. A covenant was an agreement between a powerful person, usually a lord or a king or an emperor, and a subordinate. And the great thing about a covenant was it was unbreakable. About the worst thing you could ever say about anybody was that they were a covenant breaker. But a covenant could be improved, not cancelled, but improved. And for a covenant to be improved, it had to be superior in every respect to the previous covenant. So, for example, if you had a covenant that you were employed by the king and you worked 40 hours a week and you were paid 100 pieces of silver, if the king tried to change the covenant that you would now get paid 200 pieces of silver, but you would have to work 80 hours a week or even 60 hours a week, that could not be done. That was seen as covenant breaking, because while on the one side the more money might be an improvement, the added hours you had to work were seen as a drawback, as not an improvement at all, but a degradation of the original covenant. And so the covenant had to be an improvement in every single respect. Now, in the Old Testament, we see a number of covenants unfolding. And each one of them was a total improvement on what came before. So we had the Adamic covenant with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, that basically they had to do what God said and not eat of the tree in the garden. Well, that was a covenant. But then there was a covenant later on made with Noah that God would not destroy the earth again. And then there was a couple of covenants that God made with Abraham, a covenant to do with his descendants. And of course, Jesus would be one of those descendants, but also a covenant to do with the land, the promised land that God was giving him. There was, of course, the covenant that God made with Moses on Mount Sinai, and including writing down the 10 Commandments on tablets of stone. There was a covenant that God made with David, that a descendant of his would always be found to sit on the throne. And then, of course, we have the new covenant in Jesus. That new covenant which we celebrate because Jesus initiated it when he celebrated the Last Supper with his disciples in the upper room and said, this is the blood of the new covenant. And Hebrews speaks about that as the everlasting covenant. Now, the new covenant is superior to everything that came before, and Jeremiah prophesied this new covenant. And he said it would not be written on tablets of stone, but it would be written on our hearts. In other words, it's about a relationship with God rather than a list of rules. You see, there's a great emphasis today in some parts of America about putting the 10 Commandments on classroom walls. But you can put the Old Covenant on classroom walls as much as you like, but it won't change hearts. Only God can change somebody's heart. And a heart is not changed by a list of commandments. A heart is changed by a relationship with God, and that is through Jesus Christ. You see, you miss the point of the Old Covenant dreadfully unless you understand it was really about Jesus. And Jeremiah reveals that to us with this promise of the New Covenant, because it's all about Jesus. God bless you today. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.